Hello everyone, and welcome to another blush declutter. I have already decluttered my cream blushes, but today we are tackling powders. And no matter the formula, whether it is powder or cream, I need it to blend seamlessly. I need it to be very easy to work with. And at the end of the day, I want a realistic flush, and I have a ton of favorites that really give me that true blushing effect. We'll talk about them today, but there are also some that I could certainly declutter. So if you're new to my channel, hi. I hope you find the video super helpful. If you're into that really beautiful flush cheek, my videos are definitely for you, so I would love for you to subscribe. And definitely stay tuned for my bronzer declutter coming very soon. I think we are going to start with the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blushes. Now, this is actually the same blush. Both shades are pretty peach, so I am going to go ahead and declutter this one. Now, of course, this is a baked formula. This formula Essence is certainly known for at this point. And essentially what a baked formula does is it gives you a little bit less pigment overall, but in the process, you're kind of left with this really soft on the skin kind of finish. You either like a baked formula or you don't, but if you are someone that tends to prefer them, you like that more sheer, soft on the skin kind of look, I think these are very pretty. You can see this one has a little bit of a shift to it as well, and it's not sparkly. You'll find throughout this video, I do not like a sparkly blush. I think this has a very nice balance. Very pretty, and as far as powder blushes go at an affordable price, I definitely do recommend this one. So I will be keeping this. Now, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, these are the Tom Ford blushes. They're the Shade and Illuminate blushes, and I have mine in the shade Sun Drunk. Now, this is a completely different formula as far as powders go. What you are getting from this is something that feels much silkier and more finely milled. Actually, you can kind of hear, I'll put my finger into this powder and you can actually hear the difference. You hear how it just has a bit of a rougher feeling and sound to it. Now listen to this. I mean, you could barely hear it. What I typically do is just mix the two colors together and apply them right on. Now you can see it's not like flush with pigment. It doesn't have a ton of pigment. What this is though, is I consider it to be a finishing powder texture within a blush. And I think that that makes this really extra beautiful. There's just this kind of silkiness, and if you're someone that likes a really blurred look on your cheeks, rather than going in with a finishing powder, this could be a nice alternative. I think it's absolutely stunning. Again, I really like to mix the two, but I will say this side in particular, if you're into that more sunburnt effect, you'll come to find in this video, I love that look. It is a really, really, really beautiful color for that kind of flush. Now this is expensive, however, I do think it is really beautiful. Again, especially if you are into that really finely milled, silky blush look. So I will be keeping this one. In, again, the more expensive territory, we have this blush from Dior. It's their Backstage Rosy Glow in the shade 004 Coral. Now, I actually heard they're coming out with more shades. Very exciting. What is really beautiful about this blush, and also the original shade, the pink shade, it essentially is, in my opinion, that blush for your blush. And I know that might seem kind of weird to you all, but it essentially, these original shades though, they have this kind of almost a neon note or a quality that ends up adding that extra bit of brightening to your cheeks, and that is why I find them to be very unique. Now this one is a little bit warmer, the other shade is of course a little bit cooler, so depending on your skin tone, one might work better than the other. So I have more of a warm skin tone. I did have the original Rosy Glow blush in the actual original packaging from Dior. but what you can kind of see, and hopefully you can see that there, it just brings this extra bit of life to the skin. And I just can't tell you, whenever I feel like my makeup is looking dull, I don't understand what's happening with it. I don't know why. Overall, I feel like there's this kind of sallowness to my look. Take a little bit of this onto the cheeks and a little bit into the crease, or even if you'd like, you can put some of this on your forehead. It's not even super noticeable right away. It just looks like it's just coming through the skin in, I believe, to be a really, really unique way. Mine, I did drop it and now it kind of like, you hear that? It kind of like came out. So I could just depot this into a palette if I wanted to, but for some reason I haven't done that yet. Anyway, it is absolutely fantastic. I do highly recommend. And if you guys would like to see me try out some of the other shades, let me know. I am interested in like their take on the new shades, especially because the original 2 shades really do work as that kind of brightening blush look. And the other ones, I don't know if they will. Definitely, certainly keeping this. You know what? Right at the beginning of the video, I want to call out a new favorite to my collection. This is a blush from Hourglass. It is the Ambient Lighting Blush in the shade Nude Exposure. Now, this is another one of those baked formulas that we were just talking about. But the difference is that in the kind of Hourglass way, they have been able to create a texture that really, it almost kind of warms up on the skin. You know, with a swatch, I don't necessarily get much color and I'm just kind of like, oh, you know, it's just whatever. It's not looking like much. And then when it applies on, it truly does create this candle lit effect. And what I mean by candlelit, you know, Hourglass does use that term a lot, but what candlelit means to me is that it refines the skin the way that like candlelight would. You know, it has this softening effect. The imperfections just look a little bit more blurred. And I don't know if you can tell from this shade, it is so natural on the skin. Really, as far as powder formulas go, I think it's one of the absolute best. It makes me curious about some of the other shades actually. Again, this is the shade Mood Exposure, which looks quite plum, and they even describe it as a plum, but I don't find it to be overly cool toned necessarily. You could use this with a big brush and kind of use it as that finishing powder meets blush kind of look. You can see that there are swirls of a finishing powder in here as well. I think it's a really unique and beautiful, beautiful product. And personally, I've been finding myself reaching for it nearly every time I do my makeup. I'm actually having to like force myself to put this away to like actually try new makeup. But yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So happy I tried it. And they also have a travel size. I'll leave a link to the travel size down below because the price is definitely better. And you know, a lot of us don't go through an entire blush anymore necessarily. So if you were interested, I will leave that down below, but this is certainly staying. Now, next on the docket, I have one of the new Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Glow blushes, and I have the shade 30. Now, this is still new to me. I have used it a couple times. Actually, when I do my makeup today, I might go ahead and use this one again. But honestly, you guys, it's really, really pretty. I really enjoy the shade. And I know a lot of people are kind of talking about the shade that's similar to like, you know, Nars Orgasm. I'm not a huge shimmer person, and this one is way more of a satin finish. But I will say, right off the bat, you can see these have more pigment to them than some of the other blushes, at least in the luxury realm, you know, that we've been talking about. And I think if you like that pop, these will certainly give it to you. If you are not afraid of that really pretty blushing effect, I think they're great. And again, it's nice because it's more of a satin kind of look. You can see it almost has like a touch of a something to it, you know, that touch of a light reflection quality. Super beautiful. I love Giorgio Armani as far as the Luminous Silk range. I love the foundation, absolutely love the concealer, and You know, that's very difficult, at least for me, to fall in love with a concealer. If you don't know the story, leave me a comment and I'd be happy to explain. But anyway, I am very excited to have this in my collection. Kind of interested in other shades as well. Now, this is a blush I know I can pass along. I absolutely love the Honest Beauty cream blushes, but this is their lip powder blush in the shade Boxy. I actually don't think this is a bad product, and there will be people that are watching right now that will really enjoy this. If you prefer a blush with more pigment, you like pigment, you want something with a decent shift to it, like you can see there definitely is a stronger shift to this. And in general, you want that kind of bronzer, like blonzer kind of effect, I think you might really like this. The reason I have this is that I compared it to the Bare Minerals bronzers, and for me, this is very, very similar to that product. But in general, I do think that there's too strong of a shift, you know, a little bit too strong of that highlighted effect. And I wish it was a touch more finely milled just for my personal preference. So I will be passing this along. But you can see it definitely, you know, it definitely leaves some pigment. So if you like pigment, it's there. Next, we have the Persona Super Blush in the shade Terracotta. I have to try this out a little bit more. You know what? I don't really have much of a, I don't know, like an impression to give you guys. I will say that for a terracotta, it leans pretty yellow in my opinion. But anyway, I do tend to really enjoy colors like this. If you have more of a yellow undertone and you are looking for a blush that might be able to give you a touch of that bronzy effect, this could actually be a great option. I know a lot of people really love the bright bubblegum pink shade. I'm going to be keeping this just because I do think it's actually quite a unique color, and I'd like to get a better feel for the formula. The few times that I wore it, I was really pleased with it. Now, these are a really, really underrated product in my opinion. They're from Clinique. They are the cheek pops. So I have the shade Pansy Pop here, and I also have the shade Nude Pop. Now, essentially, these to me are such a beautiful product if you love that kind of silky, pretty cheek look. Now, Pansy Pop is wonderful if you have more of a cool skin tone, but anyone can use a lavender blush like this. It just kind of adds this oomph and this pop to your cheeks, similar to the way one of the Dior Rosy Glow blushes might. They are definitely not as scary as they look. See, if you kind of like blend it out, it just adds this kind of like veil of brightening that can really pull together a look. Also, this is the shade Nude Pop, and Nude Pop definitely has less pigment, but what you're left with is kind of just this veil of silkiness. The powders themselves are baked, but it's kind of like a baked gel formula, which I think makes for a formula that might be more flattering in my opinion than something like the one from Essence. They're a little bit easier to control, and I think that just as far as, you know, me and my preferences, I lean towards cream, and these tend to look a little bit creamier on the skin. I think they're very beautiful. Honestly, I've had my eye on Cola Pop for a really long time. If you're into that like kind of black cherry kind of look, might be a shade to look into, but yes, I am going to be keeping these. Super, super pretty blushes. All right, guys, make way for my favorite peach blush that I own. It's Creamy Peach from Makeup by Mario. And listen, I don't actually think that every blush color from this line is good. I tried out the plum and I didn't like it, but this is just, it's on another level, guys. Look at that. Look. Oh my gosh. That it just immediately kind of melts onto the skin while leaving that beautiful, beautiful pigment behind. And I don't know if you can tell, there is the slightest touch of like a glimmer, but that glimmer doesn't necessarily translate on the skin as a shimmer, which for me is so important, actually pretty crucial. Whenever I am looking for a peachy blush look, it's difficult for me to not reach for this because it's just, again, it's the best. I think that makeup built up in kind of thin layers can look truly the best. And with a powder like this, because it is so thin on the skin, I always feel like my makeup looks better and it doesn't, you know, exaggerate or make the texture on my skin look awkward. It's just a really beautiful one. Also, I love that magnetic closure. It's a great touch. Better than a lot of very expensive blushes out there. It's a good one, guys. Don't sleep on this one. Now this is one I still need to try out more. It's gotten kind of buried. It's the Cloud Crush Blurring Blush in Head in the Clouds by Too Faced. So, let's get this open. There we go. You know, it the formula is reminiscent of the one from Tom Ford. It definitely has that kind of creamy, blurred vibe to it. Honestly, this color is kind of boring in my opinion. But I think that there could be something to this. You know, in the finger at least, this feels like the formula itself feels very Tom Ford. So would you guys like to see me compare the two? I feel like I might be onto something with that. I'm gonna keep this for now, possibly compare the two if you guys would like to see. Next we have this cotton blush from Misha. It's in the shade Mama's Camel Coat. I was really excited for this just because of the shade. I thought that it would be a really nice addition to my blush collection, but it's so sheer that on the cheeks, I just feel like it's not really giving anything. Honestly, it's just not my favorite. I do have a lot of K-beauty videos coming up, which would be a reason to keep this, but honestly, I don't know how many people are even asking for a video on this, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and declutter. I wonder if Nars still makes this shade. I feel like they have to. It's the shade Savage. And I picked this up because I forget why. If you are one of the people that love the Bare Minerals bronzers, might be something to look into because this is pigmented and it has that kind of like shift thing that a lot of people like. But for me, it's too pigmented just for my skin. However, if you have a medium skin tone or even a deep skin tone, I think that this one could be something to look into. I mean, the shade itself is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm not reaching for it, so I'm going to go ahead and declutter. Honestly, that'd be beautiful on the eyes too. Now, the Buxom Wanderlust blushes are a beautiful mid-range blush. I have the shade Seychelles. Oh God. You guys corrected me in my last video and here I am again. I forgot to figure out how to pronounce this one, but this is gorgeous. Very similar to the Makeup by Mario formula. This shade is a little bit sheer, but do you see how it kind of has this glisten and a glimmer? This shade does have more reflect, I think, than Creamy Peach from Makeup by Mario, but it's the same kind of thin texture that really wants to adhere to the skin, which I love for longevity. And then my favorite is Dolly. It's perfection. And when someone asks me, hey, what's your favorite powder blush, period, it's almost always Dolly from Buxom. Probably tied with the Creamy Peach from Makeup by Mario, but look. Oh God. And you see when I shift my hand, the way this kind of reflects in this beautiful, very soft way, it's on the skin, it's going to do that too. And it's not going to look choppy or heavy or awkward. It's a good one. Again, I think they're around 20 bucks. They will last you a long time. And in the summer, if you are looking for that long wear powder blush look, these are definitely one to look into, especially Dolly, because Dolly does have a little bit more pigment, but beautiful. Could not recommend them enough. My Chanel blush in the shade Rose Bronze was an absolute favorite, and I think they reformulated. I don't know. This is the original. If you still want this shade, I hope it is the same shade for you, but it's just a delight. It really is. I believe it's their like most popular, or was their most popular shade. I don't know. It always adds something to my look. Yeah, I don't know if you can really see that there. It has not only like a very soft warm kind of champagne shift, but it also has a little bit of a pink too. I just find that, you know, for my skin tone, it ends up being super flattering, really beautiful, but you know, I can't say for sure whether or not this is the formula you're still going to get. I am going to keep it for now, but because it has been discontinued, you know, it's kind of on my watch list. I don't like to keep a ton of discontinued makeup. Now this is kind of a similar vibe to Coral from Dior. This is from Sarat and it's the shade Cantaloupe. But you'll see they are a touch different. So that is Sarat Cantaloupe. Honestly, I don't know how much longer Sarat's going to be around. I just feel like they don't come out with a lot of new releases anymore. And then here's Coral from Dior. You see how you would think they'd be kind of the same in theory. Cantaloupe from Sarat has just way more orange to it. It's right there. I really like it, but I'm just not reaching for it a ton, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and pass it along now. This is Earthly Blush number 7 from Burberry. I can't even tell you guys how old this is. It's old. It is very old, but when I had this, I used it kind of as a blush bronzer. I loved it. Let me get all of this off my hand, or as much as I can. This was my jam, especially if you have more fair skin. It was that kind of perfect shaping blush color that I just always reach for. The formula is super silky, similar to the one from Tom Ford. If they still make this, I will leave it down below because I think it's an absolutely beautiful quality product. Honestly, I might try and use a little bit in the cheekbone today just to see, you know, think about good old times with this one. But honestly, it is quite old, so it might be time to pass it along. I will say though, this has a 36-month shelf life. That is great. Bravo for that. Definitely makes me feel better about keeping it for so long. Next, I have Flirtatious from Pat McGrath, a very, very beautiful blush. Pressed quite firmly, firmly in the pan. You can see this is quite subtle though. What I like to do with this is when I'm just not sure what blush to wear, this is gonna kind of go with everything. It's so neutral, but the formula is really nice. It's quite thin on the skin, which I really appreciate. And it's great as a layering blush if I, you know, already have cream blush on and I just want to add a little bit of stability and longevity. I'll add a light layer of this. I think it's great. It's one that you don't have to like fuss with too much. You know, you can just stick a big brush in, apply it all over the cheeks, and it's going to look good. So I do really enjoy this one and I will be keeping that one. I also have a couple of blushes here from Well People. I think these are really beautiful. So I have the shade Wild Fig right here. And I also have the shade Hazelnut Harvest. I will say these, you have to like make sure that you're watching the pigment. Especially Hazelnut Harvest, it'll definitely pack a punch as far as pigment goes. But I think as far as baked blushes, they are really pretty. I really enjoy the shades. As far as usability, like user-friendly kind ofness, I think the Essence ones are a little bit more user-friendly, or, you know, of course, if we're going in the high-end range, the Hourglass ones I think are a little bit easier to work with. I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter Hazelnut Harvest, and then I'm going to keep Wild Fig. Venetian Rose Blush. These are pretty iconic. This is a very iconic product to M Cosmetics. But I just so rarely reach for it anymore. It makes me kind of sad. I think I'm gonna kind of put this one in the waiting room, potentially to declutter. Maybe I'll use it one more time and kind of make a decision after that. But I feel like someone could get a lot more use out of this than I have personally been getting. I have one more blush from Well People. I forgot about this. It's Guava Twist. This one's pretty. Look at that. Ooh, I really like that for like a summertime, right on the top of the cheekbone kind of look. I think I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one. I think it's really pretty. Now, we have the Sephora Collection blushes, but these have been discontinued and reformulated. So like Date Night, which I think is a really pretty shade, like you can't get it anymore. This shade in particular, it was like a really vibrant, pretty pink. And then Hot Flush, which, whew, that is a great shade. Especially if you like Fuego Flush from Fenty. There is a little bit more kind of shimmer in this one, so I'm going to go ahead and declutter this one. Honestly, I think I might keep Date Night just because I love it and just kind of use it personally. And I'll go ahead and declutter Hot Flush. But I need to try that new formula from Sephora. Hopefully it's just as good. Speaking of more discontinued products, Dallas from Benefit. I still like this formula the most. I think that the new formula from Benefit isn't as good. They added more pigment and now it kind of just looks choppy. I don't know what to say about it. But this is like my perfect blush bronzer kind of shade. Just always looks really pretty. You see how it has just like a little, it's just a little bit more neutral than like that terracotta shade from Persona. It ends up being like a great kind of bronzer shade for super fair skin, which is what I used to use it for. I actually used this on my Instagram in a reel recently. I'll leave my Instagram down below if you guys want to follow me over there. But, you know, this is an old classic. This is like a 2015 Amanda favorite. I'm keeping it. Now, this is the Pastel Cushion Blusher from FMGT. I believe... Is this a Korean brand? Yes, at least it's made in Korea. The packaging really got me, you guys, because look at how adorable this is. Has the really pretty blusher in it, and then you go ahead and apply it on. It actually has more pigment than I was expecting. I'm excited to keep trying this one out for upcoming K-beauty videos. Make sure you're subscribed for that, but I'm keeping this. Oh, and by the way, it's like pretty affordable. Though I will say, to like get it back on, like do a twist. Probably not a push. Look at how beautiful that is. Love that design. And lastly, I have two products from fluoresis. Oh God, I should know how to pronounce that. Anyway, this is the shade Peony Rosy Blush, and this is one of their standalone blushes. Really pretty, honestly. Like, I think that they do some really good formulas. I'm going to keep that one, but this to me is a standout. Their face palette, it's their makeup relief palette. Kind of interesting is that, I'm not positive if that is like, it's just a relief to have everything in one area. Honestly, can relate. This blush over here is absolutely gorgeous. So finely milled and beautiful. And I mean, also look at just the embossing. That alone is beautiful. But that shade, absolutely gorgeous. The bronzer, beautiful. You know, just like side note, there's the bronzer right there. Great, great shade. I just see a touch of an olive in there that I really like. This is kind of like a setting powder, and I use this to kind of clean up things. You know, if I take my blush down too far, my bronzer down too far on the cheeks, just adding a little bit of this kind of acts as a brightener and kind of cleans everything up. And then finally, this highlight. The highlight's actually beautiful. I haven't used a powder highlight in a while, but look at that. Just like gorgeous, glimmering. I think that this is a great palette. I was really, really excited to try this out. And when I'm in a rush, I often reach for this. It just has everything in it. I can stick my brush in and like, I know everything is going to look seamless and beautiful. So I do think this is worth the money. All right, so let's put all the blushes I'm keeping in here. Alrighty, so these are all the blushes I'm going to keep. And here are the ones that I am decluttering. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, not bad. Got passing along 7 blushes. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely make sure you're tuning in for my bronzer declutter. It's a great time for bronzer, and I'm gonna be going over all of my favorites. Thank you again for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.